So do us a favor and just like start right at the beginning. Maybe the first time you picked up a camera, or tell us where you grew up and start right at the beginning.
Yeah, so I grew up in Leamington Spa in the Midlands. Quite a normal kind of childhood, living in the suburbs in a very sort of middle-class English place. And then moved to London when I was about 20. Well, as a kid, I always wanted to be a copywriter. I knew every advert on TV, which is weird.
Before you actually get to that, just growing up, talk a little bit about your dad growing up, because I think this is a big part of coming through, right?
Yeah. I've always had a great relationship with my family and my dad. My dad's a very successful writer, author, rare book dealer, which I guess is kind of intimidating when you're growing up. Same with my sister. My sister's written maybe 8 books. My dad's written about 15.
Oh, wow. So big writer.
Yeah, I had a bit of a complex, I think, growing up as a kid. Kind of thought I was the stupid one. Because they were always very academically successful, and I was kind of more like my mum, who's a bit more creative. My mum's an artist, and a homeopath.
You didn't really favor the academics so much?
No, I thought, mate, I tried. I always kind of wanted to take an academic pill where you could just swallow it and then you knew everything without actually doing all the hard work, and so I could be able to quote T.S. Eliot like my dad. But it was never really my bag, I was always much more creative and artistic like my mum. My dad and my sister were more the academic ones.
So mum was homeopathic medicine?
Yes, yeah, and an artist. Yeah. She's very alternative, a bit out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and then I tried to kind of go down the more academic kind of business route. Again, I was never very well suited to it. But I always loved advertising as a kid. Most kids grow up, they want to be a football player or a policeman or a firefighter. I wanted to write adverts. And I can tell you every advert on TV. I still know all the jingles. Wow. If you want to know any jingles from the 1980s.
We just sit and do jingles, right?
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that was kind of always what I kind of worked towards as a kid, bizarrely enough, was going into advertising.
So were you ever thinking about picking up cameras, or did you think about photographing things?
No, never. I always loved painting. I was very into art. I like painting still lifes and portraits. But no, I never really thought about photography. It was really filmmaking that I had a love for. Growing up with David Attenborough, of course, and I was fascinated by wildlife documentaries as a kid. I knew every David Attenborough film.
But it's so interesting once you start dissecting this, because we're going to get to your exhibition eventually here when we've chatted, right? To look back and see what these inspirations were in childhood. So like you said, you're inspired by David Attenborough, and now you're a wildlife photographer. I mean, it's like, how do you end up there? Yeah.
Yes, I don't know.
So you were very influenced by him.
Yeah, I think so. But when you're a kid going through the British educational system, it's always kind of drummed into you, like what you must do is you must go and figure out what you want to do at 16 years of age, and then you go and you get a corporate job, and then you move to London, then you meet someone, then you have 2 kids, then you fucking die.
I think it's 2.2.
2.2. Sorry, in a semi-detached house in Leamington Spa. I think I would have blown my brains out going down that route.
So you knew early on that wasn't for you.
I knew it was never for me.
Yeah.
I knew. But I kind of tried, because that's the way that you're forced to go.
Yeah.
And the fact that kids are kind of being told that they should choose what they want to do at 16 years or 15 years of age.
I couldn't figure it out. I had no idea.
But there was no emphasis put on kind of thinking outside the box, or just saying, just go and experiment, or go and travel the world, or go and be a scuba dive instructor, and go and live in different cultures. And I think that's really sad. I think that there should be much more emphasis on that. And kids aren't really, I think that a lot of them don't feel like they have a lot of choice in the matter. So it wasn't really until I got a little bit older that I started feeling this, like, being trapped. Like, what am I doing? I'm involved in this corporate life and a corporate world.
So you went into a corporate job?
I did, yeah. I went and I studied advertising, and then I That's what everyone does. A-levels, university, move to London, live with friends, get a corporate job. Yeah. So I went and I worked for publishing companies. I worked for Men's Health magazine and some different publishing houses as a copywriter.
But interesting enough, you were learning a lot of stuff that was going to help you later.
Yeah,
without really realizing it.
Absolutely, yeah. These weren't wasted years for sure, and they're a lot of fun when you live in a house with 6 mates in London and when you're 20 years old.
That's another book, right?
Yeah, getting into all sorts of mischief. And yeah, so that was actually, which kind of led me to the next stage of my life, which was starting a modeling agency in my mid-20s with my best friend from school. Because I worked for publishing companies, he was a photographer, and then we put a model forward for a job, and then she got the job, and they gave us a commission, and
You're like, oh, hang on a minute.
Yeah, this was like a minute's worth of work, and we earned a couple of £100, and we were like, oh, this is interesting. And then, so she knew models, and she put us in touch with other models, and then we started a website, and then it just snowballed into this very kind of catapulted us into this crazy world of modeling. And
how old are you at this point?
I'm 25.
So you've got out of uni, got your corporate job, now you're in your own gig.
Now it's kind of, now you're thinking creatively and you're starting your own business. You're coming up with a brand, you're coming up with a website design. So you're breaking that cycle now. You're networking. And it was at that time when I was working underneath someone. I should have never had a boss. I just don't really like being told what to do so much, and having someone leering down at you.
But he was your mate, right?
Oh yeah, he was my best mate from school, and we ended up like I say, we ended up then being thrown into the modeling world, which when you're in your mid-20s is a lot of fun, and you're being
rough,
flown around the world by crazy clients with planefuls of models and partying on.
I tend to think sometimes, like, maybe for somebody listening or a young person that want to be inspired, I think there's always that question: how do you do this?
That is,
and it's really saving, isn't it? And saving and living cheap, I suppose.
Living. It is possible. It's not easy. Picking up work along the way. Some people have forms of passive income. Really, that was what saved me, having rental income every month. But if you want to do it enough, there's always ways.
Yeah, you'll find that way.
Exactly. If you're dedicated enough, you live very cheaply in certain places. You live like the locals do. You live modestly, and then you learn. Yeah, you just keep learning and never stop.
So how long were you in Mozambique then when you got there?
Mozambique for 3 or 4 years. I met some guys.
Oh, okay. I
met some guys there who were making a documentary about shark finning, and just got on like a house on fire, and they said, look, come and help out, come and assist. So I just learned from them. And
was that a paid job or a volunteer?
No, it was a volunteer job.
So this I think is really important. Exactly. That young people, if you want something, you've got to be prepared to take the opportunity to get in it. Yeah,
it's the best thing that you can do is just keep volunteering with people, learning from others, and it doesn't matter who you're learning from. Every single job, there's something different. I've done jobs where I've just assisted with fashion photographers. Even to this day, I still say, okay, let me help out. You learn something about lighting, you learn about composition. There's always something that you can take from every single shoot or situation. And that was just blew my mind being in Mozambique, and I just fell in love with the ocean, with Africa, with the way of life, with filmmaking, with photography, with sharks. It was the richest, and I'd say they're probably the happiest I've ever been with those years, and just that feeling of freedom for the first time in my life. You have veered off this.
You knew you were doing what you wanted to do.
Yeah, exactly. And that feeling that you can just go wherever life takes you for the first time ever. For the first time, 28 years old, and everything is prescribed. Yeah. And now suddenly you can do whatever it is you want to do. You want to go and follow a story to northern Mozambique and live in the bush for 2 months, you can do that. Yeah. And we were living in these remote shark fishing camps, staying with the fishermen in tents in their fishing village next to chicken coops, and going out with them all day on these small rowing boats as they tried to target sharks. what we were finding, of course, was that the shark populations there had been wiped out by all these industrial fishing vessels. But
so all of this is getting logged away now.
Completely.
You're doing this one thing, but you're storing away this other thought process.
Yeah. And it was kind of overwhelming because there were so many thoughts. But you just had to try and be a sponge and take everything in and get as much from it as you can. And learning about these issues was really, I don't know, because ultimately I'd wanted to go to Africa to document the natural world and to show people the beauty of Africa and wildlife. But actually what I was finding is that wildlife was in trouble at every turn. They were being kept as exotic pets, being used in the traditional medicine trade. There was overfishing, there was pollution, and I was just much more stimulated by that, by covering this type of story.
Right, because you found the real story.
The real story, exactly. The story, and stories that people didn't know about. And what's more interesting, going and filming a shark underwater in its natural habitat, or going and living with remote shark fishermen in Mozambique and seeing their everyday lives and telling their stories.
And they're not telling it to you to get for any effect. They're only telling it to you because it's what's happening to them.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
It's not like they're pissing your money to get something from you. They just, we're losing our.
Yeah. Just telling you their stories, and it was heartbreaking what we were finding, and their whole livelihoods had been affected because of the industrial fishing. They hadn't caught a shark in 6 months when we got there. They used to catch between 8 and 10 sharks a day. And that's all because of these oceans were being plundered of sharks, all to satisfy a demand for shark fin soup.
Gosh, it's horrendous, isn't it?
Yeah. So that ended up, but then it was after covering that story for so long, and then submitting images to magazines, and ending up getting a lot of coverage for it and for the story and the film and the issues, and reaching demographics that wouldn't necessarily have known about these stories. So I ended up working for FHM magazine and publishing different pieces there.
And that's not typically the type of material that they would.
No, because you don't just want to be preaching to the converted. You get a piece in Africa Geographic magazine, everyone knows that sharks are being finned.
Yeah.
But does your average FHM reader? Probably, but not in depth.
Yeah.
It was from there then I started looking at other stories around Africa. It's not just sharks that are being overfished. It's tuna. It's pretty much every marine species. Or then there was a story I did about seals that are being killed in Namibia. Every year there's between 80 and 100,000 seals clubbed to death, including babies in front of their mothers. And I ended up going on this undercover mission with Navy SEALs and these hardcore operatives to try and gain undercover footage of these seals being culled. And the government had said if they find any journalists in Namibia, they were going to throw you in jail. You were, journalists just before we got there had the shit beaten out of them for being there to cover the cull. I ended up in Madagascar doing a piece about a tortoise mafia. So tortoises are being taken out of the jungles and exported for the exotic pet trade, and people were being killed for it. And I mean, huge sums of money.
So one thing's just leading to
leading to another. Yeah.
Before we actually talk about the exhibition, because it's great, I mean, how did it feel when you came to Xposure and saw your work here?
Oh,
what was your first
phenomenal, because everyone digests photography now, of course, on their phones. So you don't see your work blown up to this size and this quality very often.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. Yeah, you when you walk into it, I mean, you feel a sense of pride. You feel
that's exactly
exposed.
Tariq just said that. He goes, I feel really proud.
Yeah, you also feel very exposed. This is your soul here that's being displayed. This is what I would say. I'm still very proud of some of the shots here, but I think the work last year was probably my top work.
Or what you would feel is your top
That's
work.
What I feel, but
Yeah.
what other people like and what I like are very different things. I'd say, my award-winning work was last year. But we've got a lot of the wildlife tourism, which was what I concentrated on.
And this was the subject for your book.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this is your opening image. Obviously, I mean, notwithstanding on the walls, but people coming by, this is the first one they're going to see. So.
Yeah, because I wanted to talk specifically about wildlife tourism this year. It's such a huge topic, a multi-billion-dollar per year industry. And this was the first wildlife tourism job that I covered, so this image really means a lot to me.
So who is this fellow?
This is a tiger at Phuket Zoo. This tiger grew up there from a cub and had spent his whole life on this chain, really, used as a selfie prop. So people would come in and they would pay $1 and they would have their photo taken with this tiger, and they would prod him and try and get him to growl, and then he would be locked away at nighttime. And that's really the story with so many animals in the wildlife tourism industry. They're just used as these selfie and these photo props. So really, the reason why I went to Thailand was because it's known as the epicenter of the wildlife tourism industry. So traveled around what I sort of through research found were some of the worst places in Thailand. And that led me to Phuket Zoo. It led me to some other images around here. It led me to...
is this Phuket Zoo here?
No, so some of the other places in Thailand that I ended up. So you see, I much prefer this angle of the photography. I think this is much more powerful. I don't like the ones as much that are at the front. So this was another zoo in Thailand. This is called Pata Zoo, owned by a Thai businessman and someone with government links. And it was at the top of a shopping mall in Bangkok. And he had his own private collection of orangutans and gorillas and chimpanzees. And you see these animals, the most unnatural behavior that you can for an orangutan.
So was this just for him or for public consumption?
Public consumption.
Okay,
yeah.
so he was making money.
It's all about status. All about, so look at me, I've got some orangutans in my own private zoo. And that's what a lot of the wildlife tourism boils down to. It's people's egos.
So it's not specifically a business for them to make a lot of money.
Oh, he'd hardly make anything,
Okay, but he just wants people to know that that's what he's got.
Exactly. And then another place we went to in Thailand was over here. Yeah. This was Safari World. And this ended up being a very...
so you're sort of sitting here having your cappuccino.
Yeah, this one's Bali Zoo. This one's Bali Zoo in Indonesia. You're there, it's called Breakfast with the Orangutans. And yeah, you're right, you're having your morning coffee. There's a big buffet there. And then they lead out these orangutans and you sit and have your brekkie and look at orangutans.
Thank you for giving us your time.
Thank you.
I think it's nice at least to end on a positive note of the exhibition, that there are victories.
Yes.
And I think that's what we need to focus on.
Yeah.
And then obviously a book purchase will help with this as well. Mm-hmm. Your book that you've...
of course. So, if people are interested in learning more about my work, it's all detailed in Animosity.
Yep.
There's also my website, Gekoski.com, of course, social media and Instagram. And I know it might sound, this discussion isn't necessarily the easiest one, and these issues.
But we have to have these discussions.
They're very confronting, and but there is hope. Things are changing. There's a lot more awareness about animal sentience. We now understand that animals suffer greatly at wildlife tourism. We know they suffer from stress and depression, and there are people who are working to try and make the world a better place for animals. So we've got to stay focused on that. If we don't, then we're just going to stay at home and cry and not work on any of these subjects.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.